The rain hammered relentlessly against the thin fabric of our tent like 1,000 accusations from the sky above. Lightning split the darkness outside, briefly illuminating Sadie's face only inches from mine, her blue eyes wide with a vulnerability I had never seen in our 3 years as roommates. "Azalea," she whispered, her voice cracking over the roar of thunder, "I've been in love with you for 3 years. Not as a friend. I love you, really love you, and pretending to be straight has been killing me inside." I froze my sleeping bag, suddenly feeling like a trap, the words echoing louder than the thunder. This was Sadie, my roommate at Portland State University, the girl who had dated half the guys in our building and laughed off any hint that she might be anything but straight. We had come to Mount Hood for this camping trip to escape the stress of finals and the constant noise of city life, but nothing had prepared me for this. The tent shook with another gust of wind, rain seeping through a small seam near the door, pooling on the floor tarp. I sat up, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to process what she had just said. 3 years. Since our freshman year, when we were assigned to the same dorm room, and she helped me unpack my boxes from Texas while cracking jokes about how we would survive the Pacific Northwest rain. Back then I had already come out to myself as lesbian but kept it quiet around family. Sadie had been my rock, the one who never judged when I brought home a girlfriend for study sessions or when I cried after my first heartbreak. Now here she was, turning everything upside down. Sadie reached out, her fingers brushing mine cold from the damp air. "I know this sounds crazy," she said, her voice trembling, "but every time you dated someone it tore me apart inside. I told myself it was just friendship, that the way my heart raced when you smiled at me was normal. I dated those guys to prove I was like everyone else, to fit what my parents from Texas expected, the perfect daughter with a husband and kids someday. But tonight, with just us and this storm, I can't lie anymore." Her eyes searched mine, desperate for some sign I understood. I pulled my hand back gently, not because I didn't feel something, but because the shock was too much. "Sadie," I managed to say, my own voice shaky, "you've always said you were straight. You brought home that guy last semester, the one from your art class. What changed?" She laughed bitterly, a sound swallowed by the wind. "Nothing changed, Azalea. I was just better at hiding it. Remember when we stayed up all night talking about our dreams during sophomore year? You told me about wanting to help people through psychology, and I listened, but inside I was falling harder. I pushed it down because admitting it meant facing my family, my church, back home, everything. The storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos in my chest. We talked for hours as the rain pounded on, never letting up. She told me about the nights she lay awake listening to me breathe across the room, the jealousy she felt when I went on dates, the way she replayed our hugs in her mind. I shared my own fears, how I had always felt a pull toward her but dismissed it because she was off limits. By the time the thunder faded to distant rumbles, the air between us felt charged with possibility and terror. We didn't sleep much that night, just lay there side by side, hands almost touching, wondering what this meant for our friendship, our futures. As the first gray light crept in, I knew this confession had set something in motion that neither of us could stop. The price was already starting to feel heavy, but in that moment under the dripping tent, I couldn't deny the spark of hope mixing with the fear. The morning after the storm brought a fragile sunlight filtering through the tall pines as we packed up the soaked gear in silence, broken only by the drip of water from the branches. Back in our small apartment near campus in Portland, the confession hung between us like an invisible wall that had finally crumbled. I watched Sadie as she unpacked, her hands trembling slightly, and wondered if this was real, or if the rain had washed away her usual defenses only to rebuild them stronger in the light of day. We made coffee in the tiny kitchen, avoiding eye contact at first, until she finally spoke. "Azalea, about last night. I meant every word. But I don't know what to do now." I leaned against the counter, stirring my mug slowly. "Sadie, this changes everything. You've built your whole life around being straight, your family, your friends. What if this is just the isolation of the woods talking?" She shook her head, setting down her bag and stepping closer. "It isn't. I felt this for 3 years, every time we cooked dinner together or watched movies on the couch. I just didn't have the courage to say it until now." Over the next days we navigated the new territory carefully. We went to class together like always, but now every glance lingered a second longer. One evening after a long day of lectures, we sat on the couch and she took my hand for the first time without the storm as excuse. Felt right but terrifying. Her internal struggle was written all over her face, the way she would pull back then lean in again, questioning her identity out loud. "I was always the straight one," she said one night over takeout. "My parents would lose it if they knew. They already pressure me about finding a good Christian boy back home." I nodded, understanding too well. My own family in Texas had no idea about my sexuality, and the thought of them finding out through this made my stomach twist. We started spending more time alone, talking deep into the night about the prejudice we might face on campus, the whispers from classmates who had seen us as just roommates. A mutual friend, Emily, noticed the shift during a group study session and raised an eyebrow but said nothing yet. The joy was there in small moments, like when Sadie made me laugh so hard I forgot the weight, but so was the fear. She wrestled with guilt, wondering if she was betraying the version of herself she had presented to the world. I worried I was pulling her into a life that would bring her pain. Yet each day the bond grew stronger, pulling us closer despite the shadows. We decided to keep it private for now, testing the waters slowly, but the tension was building like another storm on the horizon. The price of this new truth was starting to show in sleepless nights and anxious glances, but neither of us could turn back. Weeks passed and the secret relationship deepened, but cracks began to appear under the pressure of everyday life. We tried a quiet date at a small cafe downtown but felt eyes on us, the barista giving a knowing look that made Sadie tense up. Back home she paced the living room, her voice rising. What if people start talking, Azalea? My art professor already asked if we were more than roommates. I sat on the edge of the couch trying to stay calm. We knew this might happen. Society isn't kind to us, especially when one of us was known as straight. The stares at school grew, the subtle judgments from our friend group. Emily pulled me aside one afternoon after class, her tone laced with concern. Sadie seems different lately. You two are always together. Is there something going on? I deflected, but the seed was planted. Sadie's family called more often, her mother pressing about boys and future plans, the guilt eating at her. She would hang up and cry in my arms, whispering how she felt torn between the love she felt and the life she was raised to live. I faced my own battles, my psychology studies highlighting the internal conflicts I saw in her, the moral dilemma of choosing authenticity over approval. One night a heated argument erupted when she suggested we slow down. Maybe this is too much too fast, she said, her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to lose my family. I snapped back, hurt. So you confess after 3 years and now you want to hide again? The words hung heavy, leading to a night of apologies and closer embraces. But the damage was done, the first real test of our bond. Social backlash mounted. A classmate posted a vague comment online hinting at us, which spread like wildfire in our circles. The tension rose as we navigated classes with whispers following us, the fear of exposure growing. Sadie questioned everything, her faith, her upbringing, the rightness of her choice, while I fought my own doubts about whether I was worth the upheaval. The drama escalated when Emily confronted Sadie, directly accusing her of changing and betraying their friendship. The confrontation left Sadie shattered, but it also strengthened her resolve to face the truth. Yet the cost was mounting in lost sleep, strained friendships, and the constant weight of what-ifs. We held on, but the storm was far from over. The breaking point came when Emily, in what she called a moment of concern, called Sadie's parents back in Texas and spilled everything. The phone rang late one evening and I watched Sadie's face drain of color as her mother's voice echoed through the speaker. Is this true, Sadie? Are you with that girl, Azalea? The yelling that followed was brutal, accusations of sin, betrayal of family values, the disappointment cutting deep. Sadie tried to explain, but the line went dead, leaving her in tears on the floor. I held her as she sobbed, the betrayal from our friend stinging like salt in a wound. How could Emily do this, she whispered. She knew how strict my family is. We flew to Texas the next weekend to face them in person, the drive from the airport filled with heavy silence. The confrontation in their living room was worse than I imagined, her father pacing, quoting scripture. Her mother crying about lost grandkids and community shame. Sadie stood her ground for the first time, declaring her love for me. But the price was immediate. They cut her off, financially threatening to disown her if she didn't end it. My own family got wine through mutual church connections, adding their pressure and frantic calls demanding I come home and fix this. The moral dilemmas tore at us both, Sadie grappling with guilt over defying her upbringing, me questioning if our love was worth destroying her support system. Betrayals piled up, old friends distancing themselves, whispers turning to outright avoidance on campus. We returned to Portland exhausted, but united, yet the internal conflicts raged, Sadie waking from nightmares about hell and family rejection, me battling the fear I had corrupted her. The drama reached new heights in heated arguments where we weighed the choices. Staying together meant facing the world alone, but separating felt like dying inside. The awakening was painful but real as we saw the strength in each other amid the chaos, the decisions we made carrying heavy consequences that would shape everything ahead. Sadie pulled back for a week after the Texas trip, the guilt consuming her as she buried herself in art projects, avoiding deep talks. I gave her space, but the silence ate at me until one rainy evening she broke down again. Azalea, I love you, but what if this is wrong? My whole life I've been taught this is a sin. Am I selfish for choosing you over them? Her words sparked another confrontation, our voices rising in the apartment as we laid bare the trade-offs. I admitted my fears that I might be the reason she lost everything, while she confessed the joy she felt with me outweighed the pain, but the moral battle raged on. We decided to try distance, thinking it might bring clarity, but the separation only highlighted how intertwined our lives had become. Family pressure intensified, my parents cutting contact temporarily, Sadie sending letters filled with pleas and Bible verses. A career opportunity for Sadie in graphic design came up, but it required moving back near family, which would mean ending us. She turned it down, choosing love, but the sacrifice cost her financial stability, leading to late nights, job hunting, and stress lines on her face. I supported her through it all, but my own internal awakening came during a solo walk where I realized the depth of my commitment, the willingness to fight despite the prejudice. Betrayal struck again when a distant relative posted about us online, amplifying the shame. The climax built as we argued about breaking up to spare each other more pain, Sadie saying maybe I should have stayed silent. Tears flowed, decisions hung in balance until a quiet moment of reflection brought us back together stronger. The psychological toll was immense, but it forced us to confront the right and wrong in our choices, the price paid in lost relationships and self-doubt, forging a new understanding. We emerged changed, ready for whatever came next, but the scars remained. The final showdown happened at a family gathering. Sadie insisted on attending to explain in person, her parents' cold stares meeting us at the door. Voices rose, accusations flew, but this time we stood firm side by side, detailing the 3 years of hidden feelings, the growth, the love that refused to be denied. Her mother broke down in tears, her father stormed out, but a small crack appeared when Sadie spoke of the happiness she had found. Back in Portland, we faced the aftermath, lost invitations from relatives, strained finances, but also a deeper bond. Friends slowly returned, some offering support, others fading away. The awakening was complete as we rebuilt our lives together, Sadie pursuing her art with new passion, me advancing in psychology, with a focus on helping those in similar struggles. Yet the costs lingered in quiet moments of doubt, the family war leaving empty seats at holidays, the societal prejudice still present in sideways glances. We chose each other every day despite it all, the decisions carrying the weight of lost futures, but also the gift of authenticity. Through it all, the drama taught us the power of truth, even when it shatters worlds. After everything, the pain, the betrayals, the sacrifices, I have to ask, was embracing our truth worth the irreversible damage to our families and futures, or should we have buried those feelings to spare everyone the heartbreak?